With the winter event well past us at this point, let's actually take a look at the naval reward for said event. USS Newport News, a Des Moines-class heavy cruiser, which in all honesty isn't anything too different from the US Navy cruiser playstyle. Let's take a closer look. We'll start at the business end of the Newport News, its 9 auto-loaded 203mm guns. This is the main trait that makes the Des Moines-class cruisers special, as these 203mm guns carry the same shells as the other American heavy cruisers, but it's their reload rate that is extraordinary. Instead of the 15 to 22 second reload of the other heavy cruisers, Newport News has a reload rate varying between 7.8 and 6 seconds depending on crew skills. This reload rate is identical to the 6.0 American light cruisers. So a heavy cruiser's hitting power with a light cruiser's reload. And that's also it, really. That's all that's really special about this vessel. It's not some godly dreadnought slayer as some people might have been saying, but it is for sure a solid cruiser. So let's keep looking at the rest of the ship. After those superb main guns, we have the standard secondary armament for the late American cruiser. 6 twin 127mm gun turrets, in the typical configuration for an American cruiser, as seen here. I would highly recommend using primarily high explosive variable time fuse shells, as these guns will serve as your long range AA, but these shells are also good enough against surface targets. I also highly recommend to use these secondary guns together with your primary guns with this option, as the combined firepower will be very much overwhelming for most enemy defenses. When it comes to Newport News' Tertiary battery, it consists solely of 2 dual 76mm gun mounts. These mounts, by the way, Pittsburgh has 10 of. They do carry high explosive variable time fuse by default, but it's still rather lackluster anti-air, especially for a cruiser of this PR. And again, considering that if you were to use your 5-inch secondaries together with your main guns under direct control, this will be all the anti-air you have. Luckily, Newport News does have a radar, so you shouldn't be getting surprised by aircraft too often, but do be sure to keep a sharp eye out on the sky. I haven't spaded Newport News yet, so I can't quite get a grasp on her full mobility, but from the looks of it, her mobility is pretty standard for a cruiser of that size, with a spaded top speed of 61 km an hour. Newport News handles pretty much like the Baltimore class, so if you're familiar with them, you're familiar with Newport News. Survivability is a bit odd for this vessel, as Newport News doesn't have any anti-frag armor on the upper hull like the Baltimore's, so her crew compartments are pretty vulnerable. When it comes to crew compartments, however, Newport News doesn't have any internal crew compartments from her A turret forwards, so bow tanking might be a viable option. Her internal crew compartments do extend as far back as the helipad, however, so if you ever face one, don't forget to shoot there as well. I did just say that bow tanking might be a good idea for the Newport News, but she does have a great vulnerability. B turrets magazines sit a fair bit above the waterline, so anything with enough penetration can one-shot this heavy cruiser. I haven't played Newport News enough to know the full viability of bow tanking in it, but be sure to experiment, as I will do as well. Then, playstyle. You play Newport News like an American light cruiser, with a caveat. You cannot close the distance. Newport News is deceptively fragile, and with the risk of instant detonation, you do not want to make it easier for the enemies. So stay at range and rain hellfire upon your target with both the main and secondary guns. Avoid enemy battleships as much as possible, as is standard practice on any cruiser. Your mobility also doesn't allow for fast retreats, so be cautious as to not put yourself in a bad position. You don't have the same volume of fire as an American light cruiser due to you having less guns per salvo, so try to make each salvo count, as they do hit pretty hard. To summarize, the main armament is excellent, secondaries are standard for an American cruiser of this era, still excellent as well. Tertiaries are lackluster but workable, thanks in large part due to the radar. Mobility is standard for a cruiser of Newport News' weight, which can be a bit sluggish at times, so beware. Survivability is deceptively fragile, And for playstyle, a long-range bullet hose. So, is Newport News actually worth getting? In my opinion, not really, especially at the price you can get it for at the moment. It doesn't provide any gameplay different from other American vessels. Newport News pretty much plays like an American light cruiser. Is that a bad thing? No, absolutely not. Because again, it plays like an American light cruiser, which are currently at the top of the meta when it comes to cruisers. However, do take into consideration that Newport News is a rank 5 6.3 cruiser with no premium bonuses, so C really is not worth a premium price. But in the end, it's really up to you if you want to have it for a collection, if you think you won't ever see a tech 3 version of it, or if you just want to bolster your 6.3 lineup for the Americans a bit. Sure, go ahead. It won't be a bad ship. However, if you for some reason cannot get or just don't have the Newport News, don't be too worried. You're not missing out on much.